My whole day right here.
He's been waiting for it all day.
Couldn't hardly sleep last night. You ready?
Mics are on.
Yep. Good afternoon. Welcome to the DeKalb County Board of Zoning Appeals. Meredith, as you take roll call.
Yes. Frank Pulver,
Here.
Mary Deal,
Here.
Jason Carnahan,
Here?
Roy Walker,
Here.
Larry Williams,
Here.
Andrew Cruz,
Here.
Chris Gallmer,
Here.
Meredith Wright. Here.
Thank you. A motion to approve the minutes of January 8th, 2024.
So moved.
A second?
Second.
Okay, I have a motion and seconded to approve the minutes from January 8th, 2024. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Okay. Old business. I'm not even going to touch that. New business. Petition number 24-02.
So we are here for DeKalb #1 Amish School. Sorry, mic is now on. DeKalb #1 Amish School and Cemetery. Jesse's there and Martin Miller representing the project, requesting a use variance to allow for the Amish parochial school for up to 90 students. The property is located at 4366 County Road 64 in Auburn and is zoned A2 agricultural. If you want to take a look at your site plan with the aerial, and I'll just go through the staff report here now. The existing cemetery was approved on March 14th, 2022, which is on the corner there in the southwest corner of the site. And the board heard from the petitioner at that time that the plan for the property was to get the cemetery approved first, then the school would be applied for in the future. Students will be dropped off by bus or horse and buggy. As you can see at the driveway location, there's a little turnaround area there, and then a drop-off in the front, and then turn back around and go to the back. Students would go to the school during the same time as the English in terms of hours in the school year. Proposed hours of operation, though, would be from 7:30 a.m. to 3:30 p.m. Signage for the school would be minimal. 1 foot by 3 foot located on the school. And per the site plan, there are 3 rooms, a commons room and an activity room, totaling approximately 7,200 square feet. There it is. Also in your packet in 11 by 17 shows the elevations of the proposed building, and then as well as on the second side, the floor plan showing an activity room to the north, 3 classrooms both on the sides and the rear, and then restrooms in the middle with a mechanical room, library in the center with a kind of commons area as well there in the center. Again, we are here for the proposed use of the school. They have the soil borings on the property with a proposed septic layout, as you can see, and then the proposed school. So if you have any questions for me, I'd be happy to take them. If not, Martin Miller is here to answer any other questions you may have. Well, the chairperson will ask for questions from the board first, and then questions for the petitioner for or against the petition. So you'll get your time. Yep. We'll have to see what the questions are. Okay? Thank you. Yep.
Okay, any questions? Rory?
Don't believe I do. Yeah, I mean, I guess my biggest concern would be the septic, and if the health department's already been in there, we ought to be okay on that.
Yeah.
What about extracurricular activities after school hours?
We'll have to wait and ask the petitioner when
All right.
that time comes. I'm not sure of that.
Anyone else? Oh, someone to speak from the petitioner?
Martin, you want to come up and
Please state
Roy,
your name
yeah.
and address.
make sure the blue light is on that microphone? Thank you.
So Martin Miller, 18027 McNabb Road, Spencerville, Indiana.
Roy's question was about extracurricular activities, if there are any, assuming they
So-
would be on site.
There will be no lighting, so no after-hours things. I couldn't imagine that if somebody has a get-together local, maybe once in a great while, there might be a basketball game going on, but nothing planned, no, of any sorts, other than just during school hours.
Not like a football team?
No,
Okay.
no.
There's a recreation area for your students?
Yeah, there'll be
Outside?
basketball courts and a
Basketball courts.
softball diamond.
Okay. Okay. I think that was more the question, wasn't it? I have one question. What is your power source?
We'll be using solar panels and batteries. There'll be a bank of solar panels in the back of the building, there'll be batteries inside.
I was part of the one in between Grable and Harlan,
Okay.
so I was familiar with that solar system and pretty impressive. So, okay. Anyone else?
The septic approval process work now? Is it the county health approves it?
Right.
It's sitting at state right now. We've done soil testing, done borings, and so the McDermott Lockheed Associates is doing the site plan, and they've submitted their findings to state, waiting on the state to come back with what we can do. We know it's going to be an elevated sand mound, and we know it'll be a dosing system. Some of the things we do know, other than that, we're waiting on the state to come back with. It'll be
Health department actually permits locally as well, though. So the state, they work with the state works with Kathy.
A new process, is it a new process or not?
No. A new process? Is that what you're asking?
I thought the law changed in July, 1st of July.
I'm not aware of how it changed specifically, but
Yeah,
So is that a mound system or a conventional?
It needs to be a mound system due to what we found in the soil with testing. That Joe Baker out there and Kathy was out there, and they determined at that point it needs to be a mound system.
Okay. Anyone else? Thank you.
What about from the public?
Well,
Oh, sorry. I didn't mean for you to, I didn't know if you were going to that.
I just wondered if anybody had any more questions for Martin. Okay, thank you. Okay, public portion, is there anyone here that wants to speak in favor motion at this time? Anyone in the audience that wants to speak in, not in favor? Please come to the podium and speak, say your name and address, please.
Brandon Wellman, 4488 County Road 64. Am I allowed to ask questions to petitioner?
no, you have to address everything to the board, and then if we can't answer them, we'll bring them back up to answer those questions.
Correct.
So even if I have a personal relationship with one of them?
Just have to direct everything to the board.
Okay.
Just like you would be in court, you don't address things to the prosecutor or the defendant, you address them to the judge.
Perfect. Thanks for explaining that. So I guess first question I have for Mr. Miller and the petitioner is, should this variance be approved, what provisions do they intend to use for visual and noise barrier or buffer? As you observe in your site plan, there is none as of right now. So that would be my first question to Mr. Miller. And then should he have suggestions for that, can that be amended tonight on the submittal? So I guess that's a question for you, Chris.
So I think that's a question for all of us. What,
I would prefer if we could just get his comments
yeah, okay,
Okay,
versus going one-on-one, because we'll be here
yeah.
all night doing that, so.
okay. So that's really the 2 pointed questions I had for specifically Mr. Miller and the
Sure.
petitioners. So I guess my question to the board would be, who is responsible for the planning staff recommendations that are found in the submittal?
What was the question again?
Who would be responsible for the planning staff recommendations? I can show you, would be outlined on page.
It's on page 2, bottom of page 1 and page 2 of the staff report.
Sorry, the question still stands. Who's responsible for those?
I prepared the staff report, so it's me.
You prepared those? Okay.
And again, if we can get all the questions asked at once, we'll
Yep.
address them.
Perfect. So within that, I guess I'd like to understand why there's promotion with you sitting as part of the BZA, how you can be promoting the use of variance without having a hearing.
Is that your only question?
No, that's one of them.
Again, I would like all the questions
Okay.
asked, and then I'll go through them individually.
Is there a chance to further then ask questions based on our misunderstanding or not understanding of your explanation later?
There'll be a chance to rebut, I guess,
Yes.
if they allow it, yeah.
Okay. Sorry, I don't understand what a rebuttal is, but I'd like to, if I don't understand, like to ask again, if I don't. Okay. So I guess my next question is, why are we here tonight? But I'd like to answer that question myself, if that's okay. To discuss and search approval for use of land that was never intended. This is described as use variance, from what I understand. And that's further defined. Just some research I did was, what is a variance? I wanted to understand for myself what that is. And a simple search leads me to a license to do some act contrary to the usual rule. Not in harmony or agreement. Fact or state of being in disagreement. Some synonyms to further define what variance is: conflict, disunity, dissonance, disharmony. Furthermore, the UDO defines variance as the approval of use other than that prescribed by the Unified Development Ordinance, as I'm sure you all know. So I guess another question I have that I plan on answering is, so what is the relationship of the UDO comprehensive plan and the BZA? From my research, the UDO is somewhat of the governing rules. Comprehensive plan is further defining those rules and application of those rules. In the BZA, the body here is to enforce and protect those rules. And a statement I'd like to make is, nowhere in the UDO nor comprehensive plan does it suggest a school to be a permitted use of land zoned A2, as such as you find? So I guess by staff recommendations, rather suggesting the approval of the variance as Chris had stated, and your consideration for approval of variance, how are you with honesty upholding and promoting the values outlined by the UDO and comprehensive plan? Furthermore, what is the point of assembly and having a department if decisions can be suggested prior to as outlined previously? And you did say I'll have answer to ask further questions?
Yes.
Okay. I guess in closing then, I ask that you carefully consider how this variance promotes not only the UDO, but the comprehensive plan. And will you come to the conclusion that and I think you will come to the conclusion that it does not. Therefore, I ask you to deny the request and promote the appropriate land use for that property. Thank you.
Bettina Wellman, 6551 County Road 43, Auburn. In addition to that property, our property includes the lot due east of the property being reviewed tonight. And as Chris read from the staff report, on March 14th of 2022, the Board of Zoning Appeals approved the use of the cemetery that is currently on site. And the board heard from the petitioner at that time that the plan for the property was to get the cemetery approved first, then the school would be applied for in the future. I'm not sure, I know Brian and Brandon were also here at that meeting, and as I recall, either the petitioner, and in this case it wasn't Mr. Miller, but Mr. Zaire, and or their attorney saying there were no plans for a school at that meeting. On item number 2 of the staff report, it says the students may be dropped off by a bus or horse and buggy. One of the questions I have is how many buses and horse and buggies will it take initially and to reach the maximum student level of 90? Under proposed findings of facts, question number 2 asks, will the use and value of the area adjacent to the property included in the variance be affected in a substantially adverse manner? The response provided is the property values adjacent to the property should not be affected negatively. Should not is not the same as will not. Question number 4 asks, will the strict application of the UDO result in an unnecessary hardship if applied to the property for which the variance is sought? The response includes, there are no other locations in the county for this use. My question therefore is, if no other Amish-owned land can be used for this school, why can this land be? As Brandon recently discussed, the number 2 also states the variance is approved for the school. And under the commitments of approval, it states the staff is recommending approval. So I quote nolo.com, changing a property's zoning is rarely easy. Any rezoning must be consistent with the local master land use plan. So my questions are, how is this request consistent with the goals of DeKalb County's master land use plan? How many use variances does the DeKalb BZA review per year? And of these, how many are approved? On the application for use variance, question E asks, Will the approval of this use variance request interfere substantially with the comprehensive plan? The petitioner's response is, this project is promoting compatible use as same property. I would like to add, compatible use does not imply permissible as defined by the DeKalb County Comprehensive Plan for A2 zoned property. So how can the board approve this use variance prior to a meeting? That's a question. And per the notice of public hearing, an offer to express our viewpoints on this petition is allowed. So if you are approving prior to hearing the opposing viewpoints, you are deciding this based on information provided by the petitioner only. Again, quoting nolo.com, you must present the specifics of your request and compelling reasons for granting it. No compelling reasons were provided, so based on the application and the findings of fact, the common response or the perceived compelling reason would be, it is typical to have an Amish school on the same property as a cemetery. Quoting Google, the definition of compelling is not able to be refuted. The definition of refuted is proved to be wrong or false. The definition of typical is having the distinctive qualities of a particular thing. In this case, a cemetery and school on the same property. So I looked for local Amish schools on Google and Maps. I found 6 listed, one of which appears to be a residence, and 2 that had different names, but the addresses, and they appear to be the same school. I drove to each of these, and my observance from the road in respect to the property owners is that by the road, it seems that only one had a cemetery close by. It may be a different address because it's not listed on Google. Then upon further review with Google, one other appears to have a cemetery. So if you count the one with a different address, which is not the same as the situation, 2 out of 4 is not what I would refer to as typical. It's 50-50. What is typical is that all of these schools are on paved roads, have extra outdoor activities such as baseball fields, basketball courts, tennis nets, and playground equipment. Why weren't any of these things, which Mr. Miller mentioned, they will have basketball and softball listed on the school map? Because then you're making your decision based on not all the facts. And how much then will be added to this school if it gets approved that aren't on the maps? Why doesn't everything have to be noted, as it states that the specifics of the land should be included? There's no well listed. You mentioned, Mr. Miller, the findings in the soil that is causing it to be a mound base. What is found in the soil? In closing, I would like to request disapproval for this use variance. If the board disagrees, I would like to request a 30-day continuation so that I am allowed time for legal advice on these facts and findings, and also to obtain appraisal information, as again referencing back to number 2 of the board's proposed findings of fact, I quote, the property values adjacent to the property should not be affected negatively. Again, should not is not the same as will not. I would also like to remind you that per the staff report, the petitioner and the board knew this plan was to request a use variance for the school in March of 2022. So the petitioner and the board had nearly 2 years. Yet as property owners, we get 6 business days from the date the letter was received to this meeting date. As I have been advised, it is hearsay until it's in writing. 6 business days is not enough time to obtain an attorney nor get appraisals completed. Thank you.
Anyone else speak in opposition?
My name is Brian Roth, 4359 County Road 64. I'm the house directly across from the proposed school and current graveyard. Before the March of 2022, I had a great conversation with Mr. Gehrig, Mr. Zaire, and we just had a good conversation regarding that. And I, at that time, let him know that my number one value is, the value of my house. And at that time, when we met in March, Mr. Wellman gave you guys research on how that actually houses that then schools came up afterwards decreased by 11%, but that was thrown out because it was 3 years old. I don't know how many research studies have been done on Amish houses and the value of the house, but I thought that was I thought a 3 year study was a pretty good thing. So that's my number one value, is the value of my house. Number two is access to my house. You guys approved this graveyard. They've had one funeral, and I've been denied to my house one time. I was coming home while they were having the funeral, and I was stopped saying I could not proceed down my own road into my own driveway. I think that's a little uncalled for. Just because they're having a funeral, I should be able to have access to my house at all times, not be stopped. So you're stopping me now. What are they not telling you now? Am I going to be stopped when their school's getting out, as they're getting ready to start school? That is my question. Number two, I have a shooting range right there. Am I now not permitted to shoot at my shooting range while school hours? What else am I able and not able to do on my land or have access to my house that they are now ceasing to allow that to happen? Number three, has there been a road assessment at all? Have you been down our road? See the terrible condition of our road. I would think that there should be a road study to at least look at the condition and what 80 more students worth of buggies and traffic down our road is going to do. As well as, the extra stuff. Since moving out there, I have had at least once a year had to remove horse nails from my tires. What's this extra 80 students going to do to that also? I am actually for a school. I just don't want it in my front yard. And I'm not sure why they want to put it there versus there's places within a mile that they actually own 3/4 of the intersections, not 1/4 that they just bought. So those are my concerns. Those are my questions. I would argue that I don't think our road can handle it in the current condition. And I don't want to be denied access to my house because what they are or not doing.
Thank you. Anyone else speak? Certainly. Okay.
I can answer a couple of these questions, I think. So the staff recommendations that you see, I'm not a voting member of the board. I'm just the zoning administrator to DeKalb County. The 5 members that I point to are the voting members of the board. So they take the whole public hearing process and review it. They've not had 2 years. I've not had 2 years to look at plans. The first time I talked to the petitioners was on or around January 10th when the application was submitted. I think that actually says 2023 and it should be 2024. It was not 2023. That's what you get on the new year. January 5th, 2024 is when I had talked to the petitioner. So I'm not a voting member of the body, so I don't control what the Board of Zoning Appeals votes for, right, guys? I don't call you and tell you how to vote. That's illegal. No one from the petitioners can call and discuss this with them. None of you can call and discuss this with them. It's illegal to do, as Andrew would hopefully attest to. They are a quasi-judicial board, so it is like being in front of a judge. They have to listen from testimony from both sides and then make the decision based off of their own findings of fact. These are proposed findings of fact that they can use if they want to, but they don't have to. The Board of Zoning Appeals is allowed to deviate from the UDO. The Plan Commission is who makes recommendations to the county commissioners who set the rules for the UDO, and the Board of Zoning Appeals is that body that hears three types of cases: development standards variances, such as setbacks, height regulations, lot acreage, special exceptions that are uses that the Plan Commission has said could be appropriate for certain zoning districts, and then use variances that you're here tonight, that is something that the Plan Commission has said that they don't necessarily want to see as part of the zoning district, but applicants have the ability to request use variances and come to the Board of Zoning Appeals. So that's what they're doing here tonight. As far as visual noise buffers, we can ask the petitioner to come back up and discuss that. How many horses and buggies and what they're dropped off, when they're dropped off, number of buses, again, he can answer that question. This is not changing the zoning of the land. The zoning will remain agricultural, A2. Neighboring properties zoning will not be changing. Again, this is just an additional use on top of the existing uses that are permitted in the A2 zoning district. Number of use variances per year, I'd have to get that to you, Mrs. Wellman, if you want me to. The number of use variances that we've approved per year, I have that, I just don't have that readily available. I can get that to you if you can. I'll give you a business card after the meeting and you can shoot me an email to remind me. And Mr. Roth, as far as access to your home, being denied access, the Board of Zoning Appeals wouldn't control that. If they denied you access, I would have called the sheriff's department or somebody to get the access. I don't know what else to tell you there. Road assessment, the highway department did review this petition. They did not request a road assessment. So I go based off of the expertise of the departments that we send this out for technical review. If there's concerns about the road itself, the Board of Zoning Appeals doesn't have control over the road. They can't tell the highway department to pave this part of the road. So if there's concerns on that, then I would suggest talking to the highway department superintendent. That's all kind of the major things that I heard tonight that I have responses to. Don't know if the board has anything to add to or not.
Okay, Mr. Miller, could you come back up and elaborate on some of the questions or?
Sure.
One of them was, the first question was about visual and noise buffers. If you're willing to, I assume, add landscaping or some sort of fence or something to.
It's been talked about, and yes, we do want to have a landscape plan. We don't know for sure what it's going to be. I actually tried to get Brandon to kind of come together with us over the winter, and it just didn't work out for any of us to do, but I did talk to Jesse, and he said as soon as we get this school started or approval this summer, when we know where the well is going to be, which is not on here, we would like to actually get the input of the neighbors and do what we want to make the neighbors happy. and do whatever's needed. We can put trees up along the road, help with the noise. And he said he does want to put trees around the cemetery for sure also.
Were you part of the petition initially for the cemetery?
I was not.
Is there anyone there with you that was?
I think these guys were here, but I don't know if they were part of the petition.
Okay. That's just my question.
What are the number of buses and horse and buggy to drop off or pick up?
So currently, no buses. They will have no bus transportation as of now. I think it's something that they were maybe hoping to get eventually. So currently, there's 2 vans that run DeKalb County, pick up the Amish kids and take them down to our school. So it's the same 2 vans. They wouldn't be going across the county line. They'd be coming to that direction. I don't know.
Can you address us, please? Just
Sure.
talk into the microphone, make sure you're addressing us.
Sure. So at this point, it'd be 2 vans picking up the kids, which is what happens now, and they go to the school in Allen County on Springfield Center Road. So those 2 vans would be going there, and there probably will be a car taking teachers. So I'm assuming 3 vehicles. I imagine if it gets the full 90 students, there'll be more vehicles, unless it's buses. Our school that I go to currently on Springfield Center, we have 2 buses. 2 buses and then the 2 vans and a vehicle for teachers.
2 yellow school buses?
Yeah.
Okay.
And those are private, right? Those are your buses.
No, East Allen County Schools. They provide transportation for us in Allen County.
Okay. Any more questions? Anyone else on the board have any more questions for Mr. Miller?
About accrediting a school or getting state approval for a school, do you have to go through anything there?
Yes.
As far as the education qualities and so on?
As far as the educational qualities,
What do you have to do with the state to start a school?
to start a school. So we have architectural drawings we got done. They were submitted to state, get state approval, came back, and now we're working with the engineer on the septic approval for state approval for that. So yes, everything went through state just as you would any other property.
You're wondering about, though,
Like Department of Education.
the Department of Education, not,
The
yeah,
Department of
not the,
Education.
So it might be a little bit outside of my realm, but our parochial schools were set up in, correct me if I'm wrong, the late 50s with the state, and they're running the same as we were back then as the way it was set up, if I understand correctly. So the system that we run through, I think our requirements are 8th grade or 16 is what the education we put our kids through. Usually we have a 15-minute recess around 10 o'clock and then 40 minutes over noon, and that's pretty much about the only time the kids would be outside. Otherwise, they'd be inside.
Anyone else?
Question is not specifically for, but I do have a question about, do we have any precedents or examples in DeKalb County, maybe not with a school, but even with, what is this school by Ashley? Meadows? Is that what they call that school? Mm-hmm. Yeah, Country Meadows. What, to Mrs. Wellman's point, the public hearing process of that, do we need to be consistent? Was there a use variance granted there for that location? And do we need to consider being consistent with whatever public hearing process was allowed?
That zoned institution.
That would be something that we'd have to do research. I have no, because Country Meadows, is that, yeah, that is very much rural.
Correct. It's the only example I could think of that might even be close within DeKalb County.
When did they build that? I'm gonna say it's probably been 20 years now.
It's 20 years ago. I would assume that they did either a use variance or a rezone. And in a rezone, it would be hard to know what they rezoned it to without researching. So,
Intent is not to
Yeah.
stop anything. My intent is to be
Yeah.
fair.
so they could go through the rezone process. The rezone process would go to like an institutional rezone. It's really kind of considered spot zoning to do that on such a small acreage of land,
Because it's always
which isn't always the most appropriate thing to do. It's not saying that it should be denied just because of that. You know, I can see both sides on a way to move this forward. So the BZA is a quicker process as far as timeline goes, because with the Plan Commission, you have the Plan Commission recommendation, and then about 3 weeks later, you go to the county commissioners for their final decision on that zone map amendment. So here, through the use variance, it's a quicker process as far as coming to the Board of Zoning Appeals within the 30-day mark, and you get a decision theoretically the same evening.
Country Meadow is still zoned A1.
So if it was done 20 years ago,
Which, yeah.
it was, again, I'd have to do any research, but I would assume if it's still zoned A1, then it was a use variance. But it could have been done through a rezone, and then back when we redid the UDO in 2009, it wasn't caught as something to change to institutional. But again, I don't know.
Right, we'd have to look through that.
Is there a benefit to the county property tax wise to have a school there?
Oh, I'm not,
Is it taxed or is it?
I
exempt?
have no idea. I have no idea.
Is it taxed or is it exempt from property tax?
I really don't.
Well, what's the other schools? I mean, this is,
Say they're exempt.
I would say
Schools are
they're
exempt, but I'm not,
So that school would be.
I would
exempt.
assume so, but again, I'm not a tax expert and I'm not the assessor, so I don't
If
want to.
it's
have to be applied for.
nonprofit, like I know there's a church
Yeah.
that I represent, and every year they have to establish that they're using it for a church purpose, and their building is exempt from real estate taxes, I believe. So if it's a nonprofit, church-related thing.
Yeah.
And is your school church-related?
Yeah.
Related to your church? Okay.
Any more questions? I was part of the cemetery when that petition came forward, and I think Mr. Wellman made a statement that someone had said that there were no plans for a school. I personally don't recall that. I think that they had mentioned that there was always an intention for a school, but that the cemetery was the first step. Why? I don't really have an answer for that. But I don't recall anyone saying they had no plan for school. So whether that's relevant or not, but that whole procedure was step by step to get to this point. Not unlike other Amish schools that I'm aware of. As you said, some of them don't have a cemetery right on the property, but most of them are relative, so. But again, I just don't recall that statement being made.
I mean, the petition was brought forth then as titled school and cemetery. And
Pardon
that's-
me?
The petition then was brought forth under school and cemetery, like the
Right.
owner.
Right.
And that's how it's deeded as
Yeah.
number 1 Amish school and secretary, or cemetery.
Right.
So it's not like it was slid in.
No, that's my point. I just, why would we do that petition if we had no intention or didn't have any?
It was presented as maybe like a long-term plan, if I remember. I mean, that's been 2 years almost, but.
The site plan that was submitted with the cemetery was just the cemetery. There was no site plan for the school. There was maybe a label on there that said future school location or something like that, but there were no, in fact, I was hoping that they would bring both at the same time, but they weren't prepared for that yet. They knew they needed site plans, and I was requesting elevations. I wanted them to have their soil borings and testing done to make sure they could put a septic in. And they didn't have those done at that time, but they wanted to get the cemetery approved.
Anyone else have any more questions for Mr. Miller? You have to wait until, okay, if you want to speak, is this in regards to opposition? Okay. Come to the podium and.
Questions, if it just pertains.
I'm talking to the board.
Okay. all right,
Okay.
thank
And I'm sorry if you misunderstood that, but I don't, if I'm going to direct the question into you, then I would make that clear.
Thank
Okay?
Okay. So, one question that we didn't get answered from Mr. Miller is what will be added to this school if it gets approved, as far as, additional amenities that were not listed on the original plan. And then still a few open, Chris, that either you can email me or whatever also, but I just wanted to touch back on a few more questions that I had previously asked. So regarding stating the specifics in the plan, why doesn't everything have to be listed on that plan? Like a well, like the baseball diamond, or I'm sorry, the softball and the basketball courts.
The county does not permit wells. The county people can go drill as many wells as they want to on their property. So we don't even require them for new single-family homes. We don't require that.
Okay.
The softball diamond and the basketball courts, I'm hearing it for the first time tonight as well. So I asked that I get a site plan that has everything that you're proposing, and it's not on there, so the board could require them to come back if they want to put those items on here. As far as the buffer and landscaping plan, I think he was requesting that he would like to meet with you all to get what you guys would like to see. My recommendation for the board would be that if this would get approved tonight, that a landscaping plan come forward with signatures from all the surrounding property owners, or just those that are here tonight, to get them to show that they've approved what they're proposing. And then, go forward. Sorry.
And then one of the other questions that I had asked that I didn't hear yet a response for was, if no other Amish-owned land can be used for this school, why can this land be?
I'm not the gatekeeper of that, if that's the term I want to use. The BZA is who would approve or deny this case. So that's up to the board to
Okay,
make that
So I would ask
determination.
that question to those members of the board. If it states, as it does, that no other land in the county can be used for this, why is this land specifically agreeable to be used?
And I think that's up to your findings of fact. That's what you're going to be answering with your findings, is if this particular piece of land can be used for this particular use. That's how use variances work. They're not allowed on, they wouldn't be allowed to go, if this would get approved, they wouldn't be allowed to go 2 miles down the road and put this use there. Is this for this specific property, for this specific use?
Where does it say?
It's on one of those documents that's typed.
That's probably the,
So you're saying
From the plan staff recommendations. The response was, I don't have that particular.
it says
sheet
there
of
are no
paper.
other locations. It doesn't say there can't be. There could be if another location was applied for.
Okay,
it doesn't
so
say there
again-
It doesn't say there can't be.
Correct. It doesn't say there can't be. It says there aren't currently any.
Okay,
So it's not like there's a tract of land in the county already permitted for an Amish school, and they're trying to get a different one. There's not any currently. So
but
if you,
I guess
if
my
you
question is-
petitioned
It
for,
says there are no
Right.
other locations in the county for this use. It
Right.
doesn't mean that there can't be.
right,
Okay,
But I can see kind of how she thought that, but I see what you guys are
Yeah.
saying too, that.
Like
I
your
think
land
your
isn't
question
permitted
is
for a
why-
school.
Why couldn't it be put
but you
on
could apply
another?
for it.
Yeah.
Is what that means.
And that's
Like-
why you're here for the use variance. That's why you're here, and we'll go through the findings to determine if this piece of property can be used for this specific use.
and then one final question, and then just a statement, if I may. How is this request consistent with the goals of DeKalb County's master land use plan? And I don't know who answered.
Again, it's a use variance. So a use variance is very different from a permitted use or a special exception use. So a use variance is, again, for this particular piece of property, and this specific use is only going to be allowed on this property with the underlying zoning district.
All right. And then just a statement to reference back to the comments, Mr. Pulver, about the March 2022 meeting. I think, Mr. Carnahan, what you were referencing was on the list of property owner, it stated DeKalb #1 Amish School and Cemetery, or however it is. And it was talked about, so I know that there is, from what I had emailed you a while back, maybe shortly after that, Chris, was that the meeting is recorded, and that I could make an appointment with you to come to your office to hear that recording. Is that correct?
So once minutes are approved, the minutes are, the typed up minutes are what? This is a public access law, that once the minutes are approved, the recording is no longer needed. Now, with live streaming that we've been doing, these will be up on YouTube, but we don't have the recordings anymore of once minutes get approved.
Well, I find that concerning. Because there again, then it becomes
Yeah.
hearsay. It's
Yeah.
what your perspective of that meeting was and your recollection from almost 2 years ago versus mine. And I think it is important because I feel like the petitioners were far more prepared than the opposers. And I can state for Brian Roth's perspective, I know, and he can speak further, but they and us as well went to the auction to have an opportunity to purchase this property. It was all bundled into one. And Brian Roth and his wife approached the owners about purchasing that property. And they stated back at that time, their goal was to have a school and a cemetery. But again, from a legal perspective, that's only hearsay for us. And there again, it goes back to, we were given 6 business days from the time it doesn't become hearsay because it's in writing from Mr. Zaire, or from you, came from his address, the envelope, but the meeting notice to this meeting date was 6 business days. So I just don't feel like we've had any opportunity, and as you know, during the March 2022 meeting, and Brian presented, the property value was an issue. There was a young gentleman who's not here tonight who asked for a postponement so we could clarify property values better, and it was denied. So I would just, again, ask that we have an opportunity to get further information. Thank you.
You're looking at me, but.
I'm sorry. I know,
but-
because I feel like you're the leader. I'm sorry.
I'm not the leader, but,
I'm sorry.
it's up to the board to make
okay.
that determination if they
All
want
right.
to continue the hearing or deny the hearing or approve the hearing.
Okay.
You know, I'm staff, so I do work with the petitioner, just like I would work with you if you had something to bring forward as well. So I'm as knowledgeable as the information that I get from the petitioner. But, yeah.
Okay. Well, thank you all
Yeah,
for your
thank you.
time.
Come up to the podium.
So as Mr. Martin had suggested, he had reached out to me probably 2 or 3 times to kind of talk through what they could try to help, move this along, right, with the rest of the community. And so, I appreciate you coming to us, and I guess I don't understand when you're not part of the church or this school outside of building the school, why you're the one that's trying to make amends, if you will, or try to do the right things with the rest of the community. But furthermore, within that, a conversation that we had over the phone, and I guess this question I want to ask Mr. Gallmer is, specifically, why were you so compelled prior to February 2nd of 2024 that this would not be a problem to get approved, specifically over the phone? And I quote, prior to that, we had a conversation about how well the DeKalb County office, whatever that office was, and Mr. Martin had approached about the petition, how well they treated them. But furthermore, within that, as I started to state, and I quote, Mr. Gallmer said it should not be a problem to get this approved. So I guess I want to understand why you were so compelled at that point without even having a meeting this evening over, again, a use variance, which defined by UDO, if you'd allow me to explain that.
I understand the use variance part, but.
Sorry, I wasn't questioning whether or not you understood it. But the approval of a use other than that prescribed by the Unified Development Ordinance.
So luckily for my position and my job as a zoning administrator, I don't have to, when I make those statements, I don't have to look at the findings of fact as a reason. But I do look at the findings of fact. And with the cemetery getting approved by the BZA just 2 years ago, I didn't see a problem with the school because it was mentioned as part of that petition's explanation was that we would like to get the cemetery approved first and then the school would come later.
Was that actually given to us during the time of petition, or was that your understanding prior to the meeting?
Like I stated before, that was stated during the public meeting, the public hearing, that this is the first, everyone at the BZA knew it, I believe. So the only way they would get that information is from what's within their staff report or what's during the public hearing.
Okay. No further questions. Thank you all.
Any more for or against from the public? If not, I'm going to close the public portion.
Frank, you're gonna have to either reopen it or
Why don't you?
It's up to you, but you either need to reopen the public portion or close it. I'm not sure what your question is, but
Reopen, I'll give you a couple of minutes,
Okay.
okay?
It was mentioned about 2 to 3 buses, like as you using East Allen as a reference. Who pays for these buses, the drivers and the maintenance and everything? Is that,
that's not something
That's
that
not
I
what we're-
believe the
That's something that
Board
we
of Zoning
would know.
Appeals would have
Okay.
any control over.
I think I might know the answer to that question. I'm vaguely aware of the idea that there's a requirement that public schools provide schooling and opportunities to children, even to children that don't go to their school, like to a private school, I think. And it's my understanding that there's no extra cost for that busing. Now, I could be wrong, and they could correct me there, but I think that there can be some public school busing used to bus somebody, potentially. I know that for special education, I think that's the case, and so I don't know. They could answer that, I suppose.
It's definitely not under the purview of the BZA to determine where funds are coming from.
No.
It'd
For
be
any
up to the
type of-
school
for any
district to
type of
work that out
project.
with them.
For any project.
Okay. Close the public meeting. More discussion in regards to the board.
I am never opposed to giving more time. Discuss an issue. I don't want to. Think it's how that might impact. There were questions raised about development, maybe a development plan. Chris, am I using the right language? Do we have pictures of a basketball court? Do we have pictures of, this is not going to substantially change the use of the property in my mind, but then in all fairness, are we being consistent with other schools?
Does that, with that information, does that constitute that as an incomplete application?
I would say no, only because I think you can make it a condition of approval that these items get added to the, if it's not going to substantially change the use of the property, which adding those is up to the board to determine if you guys believe that that substantially changes the use. If it doesn't, we need to have those items on the site plan as well. I'm assuming it wasn't an intentional thing at all of them to
Well, I think
omit those
it
things, but
would be an assumption. Because if you're going to have a school and you're going to have kids, you're going to have something to entertain
there.
them. They aren't going to just stand outside for 15 minutes or 40 minutes and then go back in the building.
Right.
So,
yeah. So, I mean, that's up to you all to determine that.
and I think that it may have been an oversight.
Yeah.
I don't know that it was an intentional oversight, but
I mean, there's a couple things that if you're wanting to move forward with this tonight, is that no permitting get done until we would receive plans that have the basketball court and the softball field. And then also no permits received until that landscape plan gets submitted and approved by the neighbors.
can we put that
Again, I
under,
don't
put that under conditions?
put that under conditions. If the board has major thoughts either way on what that landscape plan looks like and where the basketball court is and where the softball field is, I personally don't, but that's up to you all to determine if that's something you want to add. And if you want to continue this, I'm fine with that too.
Opposition to the use, changing the use.
Yeah.
Do you, from an acreage standpoint, how big is this
I'd have to do the math.
Well,
Hold on, sorry.
The parcel is, the whole parcel with the cemetery and everything is just 3.97.
Okay.
3.97 acres, so 4 acres. Okay,
But that's the whole tract.
that's the whole tract. Okay. Anything else from any of the board members? So the conditions that we discussed, should we make a motion to approve, those conditions would be,
You wouldn't approve the conditions before you would approve the case.
well,
So, okay. You meaning the extra 2?
yes.
Oh, okay,
Yes.
yeah. What that verbiage would say?
Yes,
Yeah,
yeah.
I'd suggest that if that's, unless there's going to be a different motion.
Okay.
So, I guess before I would go through the questions as far as the proposed findings of fact that have been talked about tonight, I guess I would be interested in finding out, unless you want me to go through them either way, whether someone is going to make a motion to postpone it and we'll have another hearing date, or if there's or do you want me to just go through the proposed findings of fact and have another discussion tonight? It's up to them.
I think that's a good discussion for the board.
Because if you're going to move to postpone, we'd probably discuss the proposed findings of fact at the next
Correct.
hearing date.
You don't need findings to
Right.
fix.
I will make a motion to postpone. I think it's fair.
A motion to
Postpone.
postpone. Okay, we,
And I think with that, well, there's a motion, so get a second and then we can have discussion.
we have a motion to postpone.
Till next meeting, till
Be the next meeting.
60 days? What's
No,
your,
it's the next meeting, how our rules.
that's how the rules are? Okay.
Is there a second?
I'll second that.
And then just to clarify, postponing, I guess we'd call it postponing or
It's a
continuing
continuance.
the hearing. It's really a continuing, which means that either side can theoretically bring forth new evidence on.
Right, so you wouldn't be hearing the same evidence tonight. So what they spoke about, what's been presented by Mr. Martin, my staff report, we would just be continuing it with whatever new evidence you see fit to bring forward. So we need to be specific as well as what you want to see.
Might be more on the picture and perhaps more information on the appraised values of the homes and things like that.
Right, so if there's things that you specifically want to see in the next packet, that needs to be, because what you don't want is a continuance, and then they bring stuff forward and it's during the meeting, and it's a 30-page packet of information.
I would hope to see the two groups of folks here tonight
Okay,
work out their differences. I'd hope to see.
okay.
And I don't know if that can be part of the process or not.
So is there anything specific, though, as far as,
What I heard
do you want to
tonight-
see like the landscape plan signed and approved by,
I would like to see that. I would like to see an agreement, if possible. Or if no agreement, a plan.
okay?
I think it's fair. I think.
General location of recreation areas.
Yes.
We do have a 4-acre plot, so obviously there's a lot of room and an idea of what you'd like to put in and somewhat of a location.
Okay.
And, when you're talking about a buffer, that's like the sky is blue. So that's something, as he has said, that people need to communicate with each other and work something out.
Okay.
Okay, we have a motion to,
Are those the only items you want to see? I just want to, and then you want to see them coming in?
Yeah, right now, that's all.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't have anything else other than,
Okay.
My major concern was the buffer. You know, I've been part of situations where there's gonna be a buffer, and then it never falls through. So I would really like to see something in writing about that
Okay.
agreement.
Okay. Just looking up the date. This would be continued to, if it would be approved, to be continued to March 11th.
okay,
well, one more question. Then will the folks who are asking for those things see the proposals before the meeting?
So, well, we're going to need items a minimum by March 4th. We would need everything we would need everything by really March 28th.
March 28th or February?
Or sorry, February 28th. Thank you. February 28th. That way we have time to get that compiled to bring to the meeting. And if it's not, then you're going to be getting the same stuff and you're going to be having to go through it again. I mean, you're going to be getting all the same stuff anyway, as far as what's in your packet now, but just FYI, they're going to have to, and if you're wanting them to have some sort of meeting or come together, I mean, I know you're not putting that specifically in your request, but yeah, I would agree. They need to meet and go through those things.
okay, we have the proposal made and seconded. We need an up and down vote.
You got a motion, and who made the second? Did you?
Mary.
Or Mary did, okay.
Go ahead.
So your yes vote would be for a continuance, a no vote would be for not a continuance.
Frank Pulver,
Yes.
Jason Carnahan,
Yes.
Mary Deal,
Yes.
Roy Walker, Larry Williams.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
There will not be. Sorry, re-notification is not required because it is a continuance, so I would just have this be your official notification of the meeting on March 11th at 6 PM. And we do have one more case. You guys are welcome to hang around for it, or if you are leaving, I ask that you leave the building so we don't hear you chit-chat out in the hallway. Thanks.
Okay, next petition, 24-03.
This is a petition of Brett and Dinah Miller. Angie Wallace is representing them from Compass Land Surveying. Property is located at 2822 County Road 56 in Auburn, requesting a development standards variance to allow for the reduction of the required lot acreage for a proposed one-lot subdivision. The zoning is A2 agricultural, and in our A2 agricultural lot acreage requirements, the ordinance requires 2 net acres, which does not include any dedicated right-of-way or recorded easements. As you can see, the property owner is requesting to create a new buildable lot. And when properties are platted, the lot must meet the minimum lot acreage requirements. excluding those dedicated right-of-way or easements. The petitioner is proposing the lot to be 1.73 acres, thus requesting the variance for 0.27 acres. The proposed lot will not be going into the delineated wetlands or drainage easement, and this causes the lot to not meet the 2-acre requirement. The petitioner will be using the property for a new single-family home, which is a permitted use. Additionally, the petitioner has found 2 sites for a septic system, and the health department is awaiting approval from this development standards variance to move forward with issuing a permit for an on-site residential septic system. Just with this as well, even if they would go into the, as you can see, the wetland or the
Marsh?
drainage easement or marsh, that can't be included as part of the 2 net acres as well. So for this particular triangle to become buildable, this is the only option really they have.
Okay, the petitioner, would you like to speak?
Good evening, Angie Wallace with Compass Land Surveying. I do have a sketch here if you guys would like to see how we could get 2 acres, but it's going to require a 5-acre parcel to get the 2. So, you know, can I pass this out to everyone? Show them.
Want to? Sure.
So, if the 2 acres is required, out of the wetlands.
Oh, that involves going, sorry, I'll wait till you get back to the mic. You're probably going to explain it for them.
So the, I don't know, peachy color, that's what we're proposing. So it's a 1.73 acres, which that already has the 30-foot of dedicated right-of-way that's required. The gray area is the non-usable area that you just have to have. And then that little purple area is how we could get 2 acres. So they're gonna have 3 acres of unusable land to just try to get that 2 acres to meet the requirements. So we're just asking
And
for
that part on the southeast side probably would never get used by them anyway.
No.
So, okay.
Yeah, they'd have to go through the wetland area.
Yeah.
It is pretty wet, so.
Yeah.
So we're just asking the variance on the acreage. They do already have 2 sites approved for the septic on that also.
The question, on 56, where that drive is that goes way back here to this house, there was on a post there, it said 2822. So
until we cut it out, it's part of that address.
it is part of the
It's that
address.
part, it's part of that parcel right now.
Is this the house clear to the back?
Yes.
Okay, all right.
So until
That
it
was
gets cut
confusing.
out.
So we'll
it's-
move that address
It'd be-
point over
Yeah,
when the new address is created.
All right.
Yeah, so right now
Got
it's
you.
that whole big piece
Yeah.
and they're cutting that northwest corner out.
Got it.
Yep.
Okay. Well, that was a little confusing. I looked at
Yeah.
that and I went, wait a minute. Okay. Any questions for the petitioner?
You said two septic sites have been approved on the 1.73.
Yeah, they're on there. If you look on the pinky area, there's little green. They say SB 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, 6 on what I gave you.
Oh, here, you mean? Oh, okay, yeah.
They're green, marked in green.
Okay, all right.
Those are all approved?
Yes.
I was out there and it's a beautiful lot. I don't have any question about that. I do have questions about downsizing lots against the UDO. Do that. My other question is, it is available to her to do it. It's a financial burden. But if a person has a 2-acre lot and builds a home and comes back and puts a pond on his 2-acre lot, what's the difference?
True.
Nothing. I mean, so.
I mean, who says the wetland, does our ordinance say the wetland can't count?
So if the wetland, if they want to delineate it, which I don't know if this
I
has
had
been.
it delineated,
This
yes.
has been delineated, so that is
It is a
considered,
wetland.
yes.
Okay.
So that would not be allowed. Flood zones as well, because those are a state-issued
Okay.
thing. Those are considered easements.
Is that being designated a wetland?
On
Behind this?
the, not what, but yeah, basically what you have shown is the.
Yes, I had, the
is
DNR
wetland.
came out and they delineated the wetlands for us, and I went
Yeah.
out, shot
It
every
just,
single
I thought
flag.
it was just marsh swamp.
Nope,
that's not.
they've delineated it,
I probably didn't have the wetland put on.
Has to be preserved as a wetland.
Right.
yes.
So, and also then drain easements as well. So back to your question about the 2 acres. Yes, people could do that.
Yes,
The septic ordinance, which is what holds weight for the health department, not the 2 acres, but the requirement of the 2 septic sites does not have any requirement that those septic sites be upheld, I guess, so that you're not putting the pond where the secondary septic is supposed to go. That's not, I hate to shove it off on the health department, that's not, when we send these out for technical review, they should be looking at those to make sure that a pond is not going where the second septic site is. If it does, it does. If it doesn't, that's good. But it's the same as well as, you know, the person that puts on has 2 acres and builds a large house and then needs the pole barn and needs the shed and needs the pool and needs the this and the that and the that. You're eating up all this acreage.
That by approving this, we're actually granting them a financial benefit is the only reason they're asking. In other
So,
words, they could square that off and still take the wetland. It just won't count. They
right, so
still-
the financial benefit, I don't want to say is the reason because you shouldn't be looking at that as the reason. I think that you have to look at it as what makes the most sense for the owner to be able to use the land.
Exactly.
And
It's a nice lot. I'm not gonna deny
If it's-
that.
yeah.
I'm just overall
yeah, and
against downsizing what.
yeah, I think
Kind of opening Pandora's box.
And we do it, we've done it before,
I know.
but I'm just,
I think this is an exceptional situation.
it's a beautiful lot.
Yeah.
And
I would not, well, I can't say I would not bring it forward if they would want to. If the health department would say there's not enough septic borings or soil borings for 2 sites, we only have 1 and the rest of the lot really isn't great for septics,
That's not the case.
I think that then you would have a reason to deny it, like we did with the last James Schmucker, who was just going to be building a storage building on the property, not hooking up to any septic. If
I'm okay with it.
Yeah.
You've answered my questions. It is a nice lot.
So those, the borings are those for well or septic or both?
Those are the septic.
Okay, now is that a conventional septic or?
I don't think they're at that stage at this point.
probably not.
I mean, you can
The health
still,
department doesn't want them to move forward with designing a septic system if we're not going to approve
well,
or if the BZA is not going to approve
yeah,
the site, because then it's
okay.
really wasting money.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else in the audience that would like to speak?
You do your walking home.
Okay. Guess we'll close that portion. There's no for or against. So Any other comments from the board?
Not relevant ones, anyway.
Pardon me?
The not relevant comments, anyway.
No.
I have comments.
I'll make the motion to approve.
You
Gotta go through the
calm
findings.
down.
Oh, yeah.
Get-
And you can't make the motion.
Well, you had to bring it up, didn't you?
You can only second a motion. You cannot
Okay,
bring it.
okay. Finding of facts,
Okay,
Mr.
all right.
Cruz.
Well, I would like to point out for the public that these are proposed findings which are not final until adopted by the board, and I believe that's the same language that was on the prior one. So we'll go through these. Jurisdictional findings are pretty straightforward. Application completed and filed on January 10th of this year. Meredith?
Yes.
Legal notice published in the Star on February 2nd and affidavit given to staff.
Yes.
Certificate of mailing notices sent and receipts given to staff.
Yes.
Yes? All right. Letter from the County Board of Health dated January 16th.
Yes.
Letter from the County Highway Department dated January 12th.
Yes.
A letter from the Soil and Water Conservation District dated January 11th.
Yes.
Letter from the County Surveyor or Drainage Board dated January 23rd. And the letter from the DeKalb County Airport Authority is not applicable. So we have 3 proposed findings, and I suppose I think we've talked about doing these differently. So I'll start out and I'll read the first question. Will the approval of the variance request be injurious to the public health, safety, morals, and general welfare of the community? Maybe we can have comments from one or more of the board, and then you can decide at the end to vote on whether you accept these findings or not, or amend them, so.
Comments. I'll go ahead and read it. No, the reduction to the lot will be less than 2 acres is not injurious to the public. The property will be used for a new single-family home, and the petitioner has found 2 sites for a septic system per rules of the health department.
Number 2, will the use and value of the area adjacent to the property included in the variance request be affected in a substantially adverse manner?
I'm going to say no. And the reduction to the lot acreage may increase the property values in the area, but should not have a negative impact on values.
Number 3, will the strict application of the terms of the Unified Development Ordinance result in practical difficulties in the use of the property?
Yes. The reduction to the lot frontage will allow for the construction of a new single-family home to be built. With the lot being out of the delineated wetlands and regulated drain, the net lot acreage cannot meet the 2-acre requirement. The petitioner has found 2 sites for a septic system per the rules of the health department.
Then we have planning staff recommendations and comments and proposed conditions of approval. Number 1, the board retains continuing jurisdiction of this development standards variance to assure compliance with all terms and conditions and/or impose additional conditions deemed necessary for health and safety. Number 2, a variance to allow the reduction of lot acreage is or would be approved. Number 3, comply with any applicable environmental standards as required in Article 5, 5.11 EN-01 in the Unified Development Ordinance. Number 4, no off-site drainage crossing over said real estate should be obstructed by any development on the site. And number 5, no certificate of occupancy or certificate of completion shall be issued until the applicant files written evidence of compliance with any conditions of the DeKalb County Board of Health, Highway Department, Drainage Board, Surveyor, Airport, or County Soil and Water Conservation District, or other agency as applicable. And further, where applicable, file written evidence of compliance with the federal or state agencies where identified in the findings or conditions. The zoning administrator to determine when conditions have been met.
Okay. Gosh, I've been waiting all day for this. Someone would entertain a motion to approve
I move that we approve with the conditions of approval as written.
Second.
And with, how about, and with the proposed findings of fact as discussed?
And with.
Right.
And with
Yeah.
proposed findings of facts.
Yep.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Roll call for the vote?
Frank Pulver,
Yes?
Jason Carnahan,
Yes.
Mary Deal,
Yes.
Roy Walker,
Yes.
Larry Williams.
Yes.
Thank you. Well, I'd like to make a motion to adjourn. No, we're out of. I think that's